It is, according to this thing, 5:34. If we can have roll calls to establish quorum.
Mr. Castro?
Here.
Mr. Sanchez?
Here.
Mr. Avila?
Here.
Ms. Centeno?
Present.
Mr. Geisler?
Here.
Mr. Cajun?
Present.
Mr. Gomez?
Absent.
And Mr. Somerville.
Absent as well.
You do have a forum.
Thank you very much. If anyone has had a chance to read over the minutes,
The files are public.
there's a motion and a second, I believe.
I second.
All those in favor, any comments? Not? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, we don't.
No? All right. Move on to the staff reports and communication. The
Take the
ridership.
lead on that.
Do we have anything?
Are we able to
Did
do
anybody
that?
have computers?
No.
No? Nothing? No, not able to run the
No
reports
computers.
due to the, okay. So I'm guessing that the staff reports were not able to be done because of the computer, so what we can do is, yeah, table till the next meeting, if possible.
Make a motion to table all the staff reports and communications for the next meeting.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. We've got discussion with possible recommendation. All right. Is that the correct terminology, or is it discussion and possible action?
I mean, I don't know that there's a correct or incorrect, but I guess it depends on what the item is gonna be,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, fantastic. All right. So we have city of, well, that would be you.
Well, yeah, so I guess, for the, I don't think anybody knows who I am, so my name's Christian Rosas. I'm one of the attorneys here with the city, and I was asked by some folks at El Metro to come by to the meeting if there's any questions. I guess there's been some questions about what the role of the commission is, or what the, I guess, the limits of, you know, or the outer boundaries of what the commission can do. And so I am here, I mean, I don't have a presentation per se, other than to restate the fact that, you know, per the charge and the ordinance, Paratransit Advisory Committee is an advisory
To
committee.
instruct us what we can do and what we cannot do. That's the
Correct.
Bottom line.
Yes, basically. And so if there's any specific questions, but I mean, it is an advisory committee, the management, the Metro, and the council, as the, you know, they're all listed out in the charge, but you review the program, so you review the performance of the paratransit service through monthly statistical reports and special surveys. You assist council in ascertaining paratransit needs in the area, make recommendations to council and Metro staff concerning paratransit program goals and objectives, et cetera, et cetera. And so if there's, you know, if somebody wants to clue me in on what because I guess the concern was there had been some requests for some information that seemed to be outside of the scope of what the role of the Paratransit Advisory Committee is. And so my comment, Ms. San Miguel, was, as a citizen, outside of the committee, you still have rights under the Public Information Act to make any request for information that's open to the public. And so I said, maybe if the request is outside of the scope of the committee per se, because it doesn't really concern the program in general, or to make recommendations to the council or to management, but it's about a specific instance, then you can still make a public information request as a private citizen, and if the information is subject to release, we would release it, the individual member with redactions, and if it's not, then we would follow the process that needs to be followed. And so that was mainly it. And then there was I was asked to kind of remind everybody that generally try to keep deliberations of a quorum via email at a minimum. Reply all tends to be not a good friend of committees, and so inadvertently people can kind of run afoul of the spirit of the law, because you're not, once you hit reply all, you're now communicating with potentially a quorum, and so if there's a back and forth, that could potentially be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. But that's pretty much my 2 cents here.
Oh, you're welcome, because I think we needed some, we need someone to be here at times.
Yes.
Because we need the guidance.
Yeah.
And you're an attorney, so you can direct us if we're right or we're wrong.
Correct. Or I'll try.
Hopefully.
Yes.
I guess part of it too was simply that what are our duties, I guess? What does constitute, not necessarily oversight
Yeah.
per se, but what does constitute what questions we can ask and what questions we can't. Obviously, as a committee, we do have bylaws and whatnot that we can
Yeah.
follow. And we're trying to be sensitive in not trying to individualize what we're requesting, but rather trying to make it as general as possible.
Well, and so I guess in that regard, so you have the bylaws and the chart kind of spells out in broad terms what the role is. And so it does refer to monthly statistical reports that are supposed to be provided by staff. And so there's the implication that staff will, report to you on a regular basis monthly with some reports. It doesn't really say what kind of reports or what information is in those reports. And so that would kind of, I wouldn't call it a gray area, but, within reason. And then it talks about, the commission has a staff liaison, and they can, of course, they will serve as facilitators, to scheduling the meeting, posting the meetings, and taking the minutes. And so I think within reason, requests can be made. I think there's not a bright line as to, what can be asked. I think if it's something that is easily put together by the department, and it would further the mission of the committee and its advisory role, then it can be asked
I
for.
feel that if we go by if we are going by the committee's
Bylaws, guidelines?
bylaws, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, the bylaws, I think we're doing correct.
Yeah,
So whatever is within the bylaws, which we are entitled
Yeah.
to, I mean, if we ask for something and if it's within the bylaws, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
yeah, that's a fair statement. And generally, assuming that the bylaws have been approved by council and all that. And
I
so
feel
would
that,
qualify?
I feel that we all here have gone by the bylaws. And when we ask for something from staff, it's something that pertains within the bylaws, so it's within our right. If I'm correct, Mr. Kaysen?
We can, if I understand what direction you're going with that, is I believe we can ask for certain things, like for instance, a sample manifest or something like that, as long as it's redacted.
All
But not
that,
specific, going back to what you were saying, not specific to a person. Is that
Right.
correct? It would be like, let's say, we can ask for a manifest just to know what
Well-
the manifest look like.
Well, that doesn't seem unreasonable. I mean, the bylaws just talk about statistical reports, and so if we go by that, I don't know necessarily that a manifest is a statistical report. And if the idea is you get the data, you get to analyze, and you make recommendations and policy decisions based on the data, then unless the recommendation is we need to change how the manifests are compiled, which seems more of an administrative thing.
And actually, I think it would be more along the lines, and it's great that it was underlined over here as part of the packet. It says regarding the implementation of paratransit eligibility and certification programs, transit services for persons with disabilities and the elderly. So and this is, I'm going back in the past,
Yeah.
there were issues in terms of trying to pick people up, what was being used, and that, it turned out It was really the software
Okay.
that was being used as opposed to being a training or a staff issue.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think would be more, that we would be looking at excuse me, in terms of looking at, again, if it's going to be a report or how something is working out.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is how it's implemented, this is what's done, et cetera. Not necessarily saying, okay, Mike Hazen went to the beauty shop on this day at this time, and,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing.
Well, and I think that's why, I don't know if they show up to all the meetings, but there's people from staff here that I hopefully are willing and able to answer all the questions that you may have as far as process and particulars of what are the perceived issues, because it's supposed to be also a forum where citizens can come in if they're having issues with the service, they can come, they can air their grievances, and hopefully through kind of having you as the advocates and them as staff, there can be some recommendations as to if their answers aren't satisfactory, then what can we be done differently that could help improve the service. And so, I don't know if I answered the question, or if I just went around in one circle, but.
I understood, but did everybody get the gist of what was going on? Or-
I understand that we're an advisory board.
Yeah.
We're all selected by, I guess, appointed by our representatives, and either you bring it from the business section, some come because of ridership, and honestly, I never rode the bus since I was in grade school, but I understand the needs. I understand the needs of for the handicapped. It's something that we have to come together by bringing. I think we need more public input. We need, like Mrs. Centeno's the only one that rides it and administers it.
I ride the bus, because
Okay.
I have a
And I
handicap.
think that's a given. Bringing young people to understand how do we better serve our community by, how do we address the young generation that don't have the need, that have the need of using the bus. How do we get it there? You know, and it's all political, you know.
And it's an
sometimes-
excellent service, I mean.
It is, by all means, you know. There's certain things that we should be doing, and of course, it's only our ideas, and only our advices. And of course, with the leadership of the people that have been on this board, that's what it is, you know. I'll be honest with you, when they put me in here, they told me we're having a hard time making quorum. And it seems like we get the right group, but then we miss one or two. And I mean, we all have other things to do, but I try to make all my board meetings if I have to, just because I'm meeting the quorum. The same thing, I got put into the workforce board because we're not making quorum. And the girl would call me, Memo, we need you to be there. I'll be there to make quorum. And of course, you learn. You learn from everybody's expertise, and you learn from that. The do's and the don'ts. At the end of the day, the council is going to decide on what they want to do. We can advise against it, but they can sometimes go against us, and they'll say, hey, this is what we want. And that's what we have to honor, you know. But there's a lot of good things about the Metro that I think these people have done a great job, you know, and we kind of just come in and give them the advice. This young man came in and he started securing funds, so he must know the right connections, so we're okay with that, you know. But that's all it is, you know. All coming together to see what we can do. I mean, that's about it, you know.
I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
I wanna hear. It's good because, I'll be honest with you, it looks like you're going around the bushes. I like to speak like straight to the line. The reason you were called is because of, I was called because of this, this, and this. I'm straight to the bush. I don't like to go around the bushes. I put the cards on the table and I'll let you know what I feel and how I feel. That's the same way you should approach us. And I think you're going around the bushes trying to be, like, per se, kind of soft-hearted about it, you know, don't want to get into nobody's matter, but I think you should be here and just give us the way it is. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do, this is what it is. Because I think being all adults, you know, we should understand exactly where your job site is, your, how can I put this? Your recommendation towards us so we can follow your leadership. And of course, respect the staff that is present. There was a reason why you were called. So, you know, that's the way I would approach it. But like you even said it yourself, you know, did y'all understand what I'm trying to say? I don't want, just lay it out. Lay it out so we can, now that I can ask you, okay, what is it that we can and we can't do?
Well, and I wasn't trying to necessarily beat around the bushes, but I've never been before this committee before, and so, you know, I don't want to come in brash, and also with the understanding that, you know, the city attorney's office represents the city, and so you as appointed city officials are part of the city, but then I have a metro who also is kind of part of the city, and so I can't necessarily pick sides, because ultimately the client is the city, and so, as I said, it's not necessarily clear cut what you can and can't do, and you're an advisory committee, so of course you can't take decisions, you know, you can't allocate funds, you can't, there's certain, those are very clear cut. Now, as far as what information can you request from staff, that's a little bit more of a gray area, and so I can't really tell you, well, this yes, this no. We could take it either on a case-by-case basis, or if you want a really bright line, it's just you rely on the monthly statistical reports, and that's it. And you can ask questions, and you can inquire of staff, but as far as production of records, that's where it ends. And so those, I guess, are, if you know, if you want a more,
We're not here to micromanage anybody, and I think that's something that we have to stand firm. We cannot micromanage, we can't tell them what to do, we can't tell them anything of agreement, because we have to be neutral, and we have to hear the facts on both sides. And bottom line, it's just the advice that we as a board can give. I cannot tell these people what to do because I don't know their jobs. Where they come and tell us and say, well, we recommend this, and if we can, let's go and see what we can do, get the resources. But for us, to help them out, but for us to be micromanaging, no, that's beyond.
We don't micromanage.
No,
That's why I
we can't
said, we
do
go by
that.
the bylaws.
Yeah,
And what we can do is what we do.
that's right.
I mean,
Now, if-
administration, they give us the information. So whatever they write to us, we read it. And I'll tell you, I read everything. And I know. They're correct, fine. And if I feel that there's something maybe I don't understand, or maybe they need to
Question.
explain it to me in a little better way, I'll ask them, you know? And I guess that's why we're here for.
Yeah.
Because we need to know exactly what involves, you know?
If I can direct everybody to the goals and objectives on the Paratransit Advisory Committee bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the first page. If you'll see it, no, it doesn't. It's the one before the
one out of
number
10?
one. It's the
Before
chart.
the 1 out of 10.
Yeah. So
Which
there's,
one?
actually, I think there's some part of it missing.
This is for Mayor Flores.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. There were several, there were several
Hasn't been
different
updated.
attempts. No, there was attempts to update it, and there were several that we thought had been updated, but they were apparently never processed and
This is
taken to
just
the
probably the
council.
final one that was approved by city
This-
council.
This is the only one that's been approved,
Yes.
apparently, because we had sent several other ones through, and either they didn't make it or whatever.
Yes.
And we were operating under another set of bylaws at one point. But in this first page, and I believe there was more to it in the goals, but anyway, but if you can see that in the goals and objectives, there are 1, 2, 3 under there that talks about, it would be on, yes, well, no, actually. Yes, oh, yours is different from mine, okay. Well, there you go.
You're from Mayor, no, he's from Mayor to Tangelo, and then we updated to Mayor Flores.
Where you see 1, 2, 3, you're gonna see under the goals and objectives, you're gonna
Yeah.
see some things that, in a broad sense, kind of encapsulate in a broad way what is in here. And that's why, if I remember right, again, those many brain cells ago, there's like another page to this, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at it, and there may have been another couple of sets of goals in there. But it kind of summarizes, this is kind of your executive memo that summarizes the ones that come after it. So in case anybody's, you know, looking at it and wants a quick reference, this will give you some.
In the first, the final page, which one? Yes, hello?
Yep, oh, there's the other one, yep.
Where you at? Where you at, Mr. Gaston? What number are you at?
Right, see, because yours,
I don't think it's in order, it's in order if you're going back.
Yeah, there was another one that was a little bit thicker than this that, yeah.
But this is the only one that has been approved.
Yeah.
So
But
this is the one we're using.
This is all the
This is
template.
what's even on the ordinance, on the City of Laredo website.
So it goes all the way back to Betty Close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was another, like I said, there was,
Pero hay otro más grueso.
there was another, well, there was another one that,
Reviews,
yeah.
children development plans, performance of this, assist city council, there's 7 of them.
Yes, thank you. That's, yes, okay. That would be page 1 of 10 and page 2 of 10. Okay, so 1 of 10 and 2 of 10, I guess that's, yeah, it's a really, yeah. 1 of 10 and 2 of 10 are the ones that would, kind of, we could go into and look at and see if, you know, we have guidance. So it's also a good thing to see about if we have any sort of items that we would like to put on there, that we do it like the meeting before, so we can find out if for the next meeting they can be included. Something like that. Yeah. Which we've done several times, is requested certain items be placed on there. Sometimes they make it on, sometimes they don't. But at least this way, and, you know, we'll have it, and we can follow along with, based on this, when we're making motions. And of course, the Open Meetings Act, this will be, I'm assuming, covered after this, or the, not the open meetings, but, yeah, I guess, because you're asking for a certificate.
Yeah, it's the open meetings.
No, that was me.
Oh, that's
Y'all don't have any questions?
No, and that's more, for the certificates more, we're just updating everybody, all the committees, their certification on the Open Meetings Act, and so I asked them if we didn't have a certificate on file for you, if you could, you know, retake the training. It's a YouTube video, and if I told them if you don't have access to a computer or internet, you can always come here, or we can put it at one of the meetings. So we can facilitate it if needed, but it's just kind of the do's and don'ts of the Texas Open Meetings Act. I think it's, you know, the city requires it of their committees, and so it doesn't hurt to do a refresh if we don't have a certificate for you. That's it.
Refreshes the memories of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because hasn't Toma changed over the last, I believe, the last 2 sessions or 3 sessions, didn't it change?
I think they just signed, because there was a criminal section of the TOMA that got invalidated by the court, so I think Governor Abbott just signed what he called closing the loophole again of the Open Meetings Act, so there's changed the language. But that's kind of the main change. I think the meat and potatoes of what's a quorum and what's a meeting haven't really changed that much.
So you still have the rolling quorums and the...
Yeah, so that was kind of what got struck down, what the definition of a walking quorum was, because the court said, you know, this is really vague how it's written here, what a walking quorum is. So you can't look at this and say, well, is it sequential? If you talk to this one and then this one and this one, is that a walking quorum? Or like, and so I think they made an attempt to clean it up. I don't know if we'll see how this one fares out, but the criminal penalties are back.
So no one talked to anyone.
How about sign language?
So,
Me la pura mirada.
so does that stretch to the emails? Because I know earlier in your introduction, you were mentioning something about discussing, we have to be very sensitive in the way we approach the emails and the way we contact regarding information,
Yeah.
regarding content, having to do through paratransit. So that stretches to what you just said. Right?
That's generally the cautious approach. Writing, so if you have a deliberation of a quorum, you have a meeting. And so you can do that if you post at the meeting. And so if you do reply all in an email, you're deliberating on matters over. So there's a lot of exceptions. So if you're at a social gathering, for example, that's not really a meeting. And so if you don't really talk about the scope of your duties, that's not really a violation. If everybody goes to the same movie theater, or they go to a conference that's related, that's not a meeting. But once you start kind of getting into it, then you could potentially be having a
Because
meeting.
there's staff involved in that email, right?
Yeah, and so I always say, if you want to, communicate something to staff, you can do it directly, or if they say, and I caution them on this side as well, to try not to put everybody in one email change, because it's easy to just hit reply all, and so that's, that's the cautious
I
approach.
request that I don't get no emails.
Okay, well, that works too.
Everything I wanted is in writing.
Okay, that works too. But, so yeah, it wasn't necessarily an overview of the Open Meetings Act, although if you have any questions to this posted, I can answer them, but it was more updated certificate.
Do you know who it is that needs the certificates, or?
As what I'm looking, probably everyone. Just to get an updated one.
Oh, to get an updated one?
That way we can.
Yeah, because I found mine from 2006.
I did mine about 2 months ago, or when I first got, by Mercurio, when I got appointed by City Councilman Mercurio, I sent, and I forwarded back to the young lady that sent me the link and everything.
Okay.
So they
No, if you took it recently, we'll track it down, and if you have a copy of it, I don't want to make you retake a training, because I think that hasn't really changed much. It's the same video, so we should be able to track it down for you. And
As a matter of fact, I took it on my cell phone because I was driving and I was listening to the whole conversation. That way I wouldn't fall asleep, so that's why I noticed it.
No, you weren't driving and using your cell phone.
No, I listened to it.
What we did one time, and actually I was not that far off, it was around 2006, and then we had another one after that. But we just basically got everybody together and we all viewed it at the same time so that we could see it and get the certificate. But that was,
Well, maybe we should have a get together and everybody do it at the same time. If he needs it from everybody, maybe that'd be a suggestion. They could set up the computers here and do them here.
it was listed as a
You
workshop.
have to do it every
Yeah.
2 years, or what do you have to do?
no,
Oh, no, well, not here, but.
I don't know that there's a recurring requirement, but I think I was just asked them to check with the city secretary to make sure everybody has a
Did you
certificate
do
on
what they
file.
send is your oath, but they keep on file the Open Meetings Act.
Mhm.
What I get is the oath.
The
So I
certificate.
just wanted to make sure everyone, if y'all did take it, then I'll track it down.
But if you'd like, I mean, you could set up another, and call it a workshop and just have it over at the
I did it
Transit
with
Center. Transit
Cesar
Center.
Ramirez, you as the city secretary.
Yeah, 'cause I can double check, like I said, if it's only one of y'all, but I'm not gonna make all of y'all come and, or go to transit.
Only the one that
to
needs
watch the
to
video.
take it.
Could we do this then, so that we can, could we find out who it is that, we
Yes,
can see
yes,
how many we
yes.
need to, how many of us need to go back, and then we can set up, and
We can
maybe
set up
do
something.
it all at one time, or do it on our cell phones, or whatever. Because back then it was, and cell phones weren't that, as a matter of fact, I had a flip phone at that point.
No tenía el beeper también.
See, I had a couple of beepers actually.
And then la barra de pan, pero,
Do we have any questions on any of those things, or now that we do have the attorney, or anyone from staff, since you all haven't had a chance to talk at all today, do you all have anything to add, or are the computers still down, by the way, or are the computers back up?
The computer for the transit department, I want to say we are probably up to 70% from where we need to be. I just got a computer today. I had no computer. I was working off my cell phone. Very limited email. They transition emails today from the old to the new, and I'm by no means an expert on this, so they transfer from one server to the next server. So we have no history on emails from May 23rd. Prior to that day, there's no information at all.
The new way to
And,
shut down government.
I'll just retract what I said earlier. I remember many, many years ago, when Mr. Julio Garcia was still alive, he told me, don't rely on that machine. What you write will never be erased.
that's right.
And that's true. You know, I've got a habit. I write everything. And as you well know, I read everything. I keep my packets, and if I don't read them right now, I'll read them at home tonight or tomorrow, but I read everything. And I don't like computers. I do not rely on the technology. I know it's very good, and I know it can help us do it faster and more adequate, but I think what we write is the best thing, in my opinion. I might be wrong.
No, and they do have redundant systems and whatnot, but I'm guessing that the virus or the malware that came in pretty much took over all the redundancies that are there and the offsite, and
it can
The
mess
business
up
recovery system, all
everything
that, so.
completely.
So, yeah,
The resolution that says people who macane.
So like I was saying, I mean, the transit department itself, we're probably at a 70% when it comes to capacity on hardware, actual desktop computers. So we still have a long way to go as far as files and data. We're still recovering. Most of the key information, we had backups via pen drives and the likes. Those are still need to be checked by IT. So there's no guarantee that they're gonna be good. It's just like any other infection. I mean, you share a needle, you're sharing the virus right there. So we still have a long, that was the best way that I can explain it, because I'm not an expert on this. But a pen drive becomes like an infected needle, literally.
That's what we
So
have.
we cannot-
Needles.
We cannot share those pen drives until they get checked by IT. So the problem is serious for the transit system, because we have a lot of data, a lot of reports that we are required to maintain by Federal Transit Administration. So we're still working on that.
And to get everything back is kind of serious, you know?
It's serious, near to impossible.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to go back and retrack all the data for years past, because we're required to have
Because
it.
we need it.
I remember when the computers were coming out, and I'm not a computer whiz or whatever, and I was always getting these computer guys to get a virus. Seemed like I was hiring a curandero every other month, and then it was $400 or $500. And my son got a job at Best Buy. He became one of those geek nerds or whatever, because he loved them, and he had Apple. He said, "Dad, why don't you buy Apple?" "Why?" He says, "They don't have viruses." "Really?" So I bought it. The best $1,500 I paid, the curandero lost his job, because every other month it's another virus. And ever since I got the Apple, no virus. Yeah, so trying to save money there. I don't know why he doesn't just invest in Apple, you know, and that's it. You know, hell with it. Yeah. That's
We'll
my.
see. So at this point, we're, like I say, trying to bring back the data, but there's really no assurance that we're gonna be able to do that. So that means that we still have a long way to recover and recreate and gather as much information as we can, as we're required to have. So by this point, we're still struggling. We're literally struggling, and we do have a lot of deadlines, as you can imagine. Not only local deadlines, but state and federal deadlines that we have to meet. And staff have been putting through every single day. It's been a daily struggle.
And
We-
that's the
we
hardest
hurry.
thing when you have the deadlines. You have to meet them regardless.
We have to meet them, there is no excuse, and we're trying to ensure that the funds that we really need are not gonna be jeopardized because of this. So we're working on it, and we,
Now,
you know.
what you're talking about does not necessarily affect, like, for instance, route match or any of that.
Route Match was given the necessary priority to reinstall and make sure that it was safe. And that's why, I mean, we can spend the whole night and I can explain every single software we have, including Route Match, the one that pertains to this committee. It had to be isolated to make sure that it was not gonna be used as a backdoor for the virus to come back. So it like I said, it's highly technical. I don't even wanna get there because I'm not an expert, but they did what they had to do to isolate it. We spent about a day or two manually, and thank God we have, you know, drivers that have been there the longest and agents. So they know that Claudia goes to this place every Wednesday, and you know, Rosa goes to this other place every Wednesday afternoon. So we had the opportunity to print manifests before shutting down the computers, because that was the directive, and so we did. To make sure that we were able to manage for that Wednesday and for that Thursday and for that Friday. So we were able to go back manually, old style, and make sure that, you know, we provided the service as much as we could. So it was prioritized amongst 100 other things within the city. So conversation with the IT director, city manager, that we needed to prioritize Route Match to be open so we can continue to receive calls, make appointments, and make sure that people are going to be getting those services that they needed. And so they did. We ended up working on one laptop for a couple of days, and it was hard. It was hard for staff, it was hard for the drivers, and I'm pretty sure it was hard for the clients. But I did not receive that many, if not no calls that we missed or dropped somebody. So that speaks that we're staff did a really good job. I mean, and I want to include everybody, some of us here, and then the agents, and then the drivers themselves. I mean, in making sure that we were not going to leave anybody stranded. A lot of calls, a lot of going back and forward. So we managed for those 2 to 3 days, and then finally got reestablished with only one laptop, like I said, then another computer, and just today we were able to get all computers almost a week and a half later. So that's pretty much where we stand as
That
far
was
as
good.
route match. Yeah. We got a lot of good support from IT. I gotta give them kudos because they were patient and we were patient with them, understanding all the different priorities were in the city. But we managed. And right behind it was our revenue software, just as important as the next. So we're still working on that one to reconcile and do those other things. So
We should be okay.
we're okay. We just need to go back and do a lot of necessary paperwork, like I said, reporting that we're required to do. So
Lot of
that's pretty much
research.
on route match. Yes.
To that comment that you just made, Ms., and I guess this is one of the things that happened on the last meeting. You just made a comment right now that you got with your agents and who went where, on what days, and what else. You've been down with a computer for how long now? How long have
Myself?
you all been down? Technically?
Well,
I'm still down.
on May
How long of a period?
23rd,
Okay,
that's when it happened.
okay, so May 23rd, you've been down and forward, right? Okay, and then you just stated that you had asked your agents, the dispatchers, the whoever, who goes where. Oh, Rosa Soto goes Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to and I'm just using you as an example, to dialysis, correct? So if and I'm pretty sure Ms. Centeno can speak for herself, but I'm just bringing that point up. If we know that Ms. Centeno rides the transit over to the meetings, and I'm pretty sure the office knows about it, how did we skip her, being that she's one of the board members here? Because you just relied on that statement. You just said, we went back to them, we asked who goes where, who goes what, and they relate the information to you. I don't need to speak for Ms. Centeno. I'm just asking overall, why was she skipped twice?
Those appointments the manifest that she's talking about, those were already scheduled appointments that were made by the customers. So those manifests that were printed were.
But that's not what she related, that's not the comment she made. She
No,
said
but
she asked.
the whatever she said that was printed, those were appointments that were already there.
We didn't
So
call
we
the
printed,
customers.
we
No,
printed them
correct.
out
You asked-
because
she
the
just said
tablets
she
are
asked the
also
agents.
through the internet.
She asked the agents, so if she asked
To
the
print 'em out.
agents,
To print them out.
right, and who went where, because y'all were doing it manually, okay? Then how was she skipped, if we know for a fact that she comes to a meeting every single month?
She didn't set up her appointment, Mr.
But we already
Those
know,
other people that were on the manifest that she's talking about, they had already set up their appointments. They already had their
it
pickups.
doesn't
May I just
match.
interject to that? If I didn't set up an appointment was because I was never called. Here's Mr. Villar. I got the call from him at 3:30 in the afternoon, asking me if I could come to the meeting, correct?
What I had mentioned was that I had lost my phone, so I couldn't text you,
And
but
that
emails were sent.
Right, and I just mentioned, I don't have email. I need to be either called or send something in writing to me. Why? I have a eye defect, okay? So I don't use the phone for that. And I was called at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I told them, I'm ready to go to the meeting if you are able to send me a ride. I do not drive, I don't have no one to take me. Unfortunately, they couldn't get me a ride to be here by 5:30. So I said, well, if they don't get me a ride, I can't go. And that's what happened, okay? And I know that it created a problem, and it created a problem for me too. Because I'm a type of a person, if I get into a committee, or I'm appointed into a committee, I like to be responsible. And if there's nothing else, I am here at the meetings, I say 99.9 out of time, and the staff can tell you, I'm always in my meetings. I hate to lose a meeting. And if I lose a meeting, it's either because I don't have a ride or I'm sick. But thank God I haven't been sick. That day, it was 3:30 in the afternoon, they wanted me here by 5:30. There was no way I could get a ride. Unfortunately, all my friends that can drive me, they all work. They don't get out of work till 5:30 or after, till 5 or after. So I told Mr. Villar, if you can get me the ride, I'll be more than glad to attend. It was impossible.
And Mr. Rosas, I'm just, I'm just trying to figure out the system, I'm not trying to argue the point, I'm just trying to figure out the system because of the fact that, let's just say that she was a dialysis patient, so if she hadn't called, let's look at the difference. So if she hadn't called and she's a dialysis patient, but then we know for a fact, as we see her on a weekly to weekly basis, then we would have left her out? Is that what we're saying? You understand what I'm trying to get
No,
at?
I know what you're trying to get at. I mean, I'm hearing
Trying to
bits
say
and
both
pieces,
sides.
but I don't know what the process is, or what the procedure is for scheduling and how the service operates, and so I don't want to speak to that. It sounds like she got late notice of the meeting because of miscommunication. She wasn't able to schedule, therefore they didn't go out there. It sounds like people schedule their rides, they can go out there. As to what if in the hypothetical of a dialysis situation, I don't know if people can set up recurring appointments because, it's not necessarily safe to assume that just because you go somewhere regularly, you're gonna do that all the time. And so, Vincent, you may have had other arrangements or other commitments that precluded you from coming to the meeting, and so I don't know that they necessarily.
But that was not the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing is also on the dialysis patients, because I've been told, if you need a ride between 7:30, they can't pick you up because at the time that they're picking up dialysis patients. So it means that I have to wait till 9 o'clock in order for me to be picked up. Do we have preferences? I'm a customer, and I know that we all have the same rights. It's first come, first serve, let's put it that way, okay? Because a week after I had a meeting, and they told me, we can take you, but we can't pick you up, because at the time you come out, it's when we have all the dialysis patients. So if they could pick me up, it was till 9 o'clock in the evening. Okay, I would get out of the meeting by 7:30. I could wait 15 minutes or 20, but I couldn't be there by myself till 9 o'clock at night. That's a problem that I've had many times. Why? I don't know. But the reason that they've given me is because of dialysis. And I thought since the very beginning that was not supposed to be done. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Under ADA, there is no
Right.
ability to give preference from one person to
Right.
another.
That's one of the questions. That's one of the problems that we do have. I have. And I know, we have a lot of dialysis patients, and I know that they're sick. They can't wait there for 2-3 hours. But, and then one time I only have one van at night. Which I understand, You get full, what are you gonna do? And that was one thing I was gonna bring up in this meeting. Why we have only one van? If we need the two, let's put it up. And let's use it, and I know it'll be used. Because there have been times that we call, we need a ride, there's no way because there's no vans. So, those are concerns for the people that we use the vans. What can be done? Which way can we program them better to get the services? That's my concern.
Yeah, well,
First of all, I just want to say, during that time, those hours that you mentioned, we don't just service passengers that are going to dialysis. We provide transportation service to many destinations.
I understand, Mrs. Pata, but they do tell you the reason.
And I'm going to that. So I will make it a point to communicate this to the dispatchers for miscommunicating this type of information to not just yourself, but
to
any customer that calls in, and also mentioning that there's only one van available, because we do not just have one van available. We have 3 vans available during that time. So I will make it a point to communicate this to the dispatchers, and so they can provide
I really appreciate it, Mrs. Pastor.
Factual
And it's not only
information.
because of me.
Yes.
It's for everyone that uses the service.
And with all due respect, it can get nasty. Because if that's the information that's given out, they spread it out to the public, and it comes back and bites us. It bites everybody. And that's what, that's something that shouldn't be happening at all. But that's how things get started. And it turns into a volcano, and then by the time we're trying to simmer it down, everybody's already.
I'll give you another example. That yesterday, I spoke to Mr. Villarreal concerning today's meeting. And I said, I just received one page. And he said, oh yes, I'll give you everything till tomorrow, because he explained, we have problems with it. Okay, I understand. I mean, I am an understandable person, and I know things happen and we have to wait. I said, okay. I told him, can you transfer me to the dispatchers? Because I want to make sure that my meeting, I'm always make sure that I have the meeting set up. So I called, he said, you can call him. He gave me the number and I called him. I said, I'm gonna check at what time they're gonna pick me up tomorrow. She probably checked. She said, you don't have a right for tomorrow. I said, what? You don't have a right for tomorrow, ma'am. I said, I'm sorry, I set it up since last Thursday. And she was she said, who took your call? And I said, a gentleman, I don't really know the name, but it's the only gentleman I think that works there. He took my call. And he told me that they would pick me up between 4:15, 4:30. I said, good. That's good enough. And I said, and I also need another ride for that same day. When they pick me up and we finish the meeting, I need to go to a funeral home. And I gave him the address for the Nieto funeral home. So I know once they pick me up from here, they're gonna take me over there, and then they're gonna pick me up from there at 9:15 and take me home. But they couldn't find me. Well, then she said, under what name? I said, it's either Centeno or Centeno Hinojosa, because I always use the two names. Oh, she finally found me. And she said, okay, yes, you're gonna be picked up between 4 or 4:15. Okay, fine. They picked me up the van got out of my house at 4. I came out and I was here by 4:30. Okay? But things do happen sometimes, and I understand, I mean, we're all humans, and they happen, and if it breaks down, I understand. If I have to wait, I have to wait. There's no other way. But those things do happen, and it's not nobody's fault. Not because he didn't do it, or because she didn't do it, or because she didn't do it, or Miss Amiga didn't take care of it. No. I mean, things happen, and I understand. But these are things that happen, and it so happens, like they say, I'm the only one in the committee that uses the program. And like I said, I'm very grateful to the program because they do help us a lot. To me, this is my most reliable right that I have. That's the way I put it.
What I would propose, I guess, for the next meeting, if possible, is just an update on what's happening with the, I guess, the script for the dispatchers. And
The
then,
script?
or whatever it is that they're gonna be using to talk to the clients concerning,
Oh, okay, yes, like a phone adequate script or something?
yeah, or just something, I mean, just
Okay, we have that.
okay.
Because you have something in writing, I know.
Yeah. And then that way we have it and say, well, no, it doesn't say to say.
And I'm very grateful to them because they help us a lot. And if they try to look for the right, if they don't have it. But there are times when things happen, and like I said, and I know you have to ask for the right 5 days before.
Yes.
7.
7. It's, yeah,
7.
7 days.
7 days before, okay. I said 5.
No, 5 days is when we're supposed to receive notification and our materials for the meetings. But we can also add, and I believe we had asked for this the last time, but it's not on this agenda, but just to see, and we had a motion and all that on it, I misspoke. We were gonna talk about the C1, and how that's gonna affect paratransit, if at all.
Okay,
Yeah,
the circular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the C1, because they talk about a van and.
Yes.
An item?
Yeah. Just to talk about it, just to,
Yeah.
you know, this is the community, this is how it actually is gonna happen, or it's gonna.
Because we have to know how it's gonna affect.
Yeah, because I was already asked, because they said, well, you all are the only ones that have vans, how's this gonna be a new van, are they pulling something off the route? And I just said, well, guess I will find out. So,
Put it in.
yeah, and were there any,
I think you
sorry,
mentioned
sorry.
it on your, on,
On the email, that's where it came from.
so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was
So,
like
yeah.
midnight.
How about the survey that we had spoken about also? Remember that gets.
That will be until the following meeting, because we don't have the results yet.
Okay, but y'all did send it up?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
all right, so we'll
Yes,
wait,
that
can we
was
ask for an
worked on.
update on that
Yes.
as well?
Okay. Now,
Yes.
Please.
And I'm gonna suggest, obviously, since we shouldn't be doing this on email, but if either someone wants to send me directly on an email for an agenda item, or if you wanna bring it up during the meeting to be posted out there, that way we can have consensus on it and actually full official stuff, it would kinda help us out. So, if anybody does have an item that you would like to bring up, or to have some sort of action report on, something like that, just let us know, and, or hopefully we'll be able to bring it up before the meeting is over, so that we can put it on for the next meeting.
It has to be put up in order for us to discuss it and take action on it.
That's correct. So, yeah, if it's not on there, then,
Can't talk about it.
okay. Do we have any other discussion items, any other reports or anything? As I'm trying to keep my promise of keeping these meetings to an hour, especially when we start on time.
4 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. 4 minutes.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I just have another question for Ms. San Miguel. We discussed last time on the last meeting that why is it not possible, and maybe you can, give us a better idea. I know Sandy gave us an explanation, but I want to redirect the same question again due to the fact that, I just don't see why it's not possible. Like, for instance, on a Saturday and Sunday, why is it not possible for customers to set up their appointments for the following week? We had said that, it's only done until 5 o'clock.
Oh,
Their
right.
appointments are done until 5
Our
o'clock.
scheduling hours to book an appointment is from 8 to 5, Monday through Sunday. So they were asking since when had that been in place? And I mentioned to him that that's always been in place. So they mentioned that they wanted to extend the 5 p.m.
I mean, being that you do have a dispatcher there, they are getting paid. It's not like they're gonna do it for free. And especially on a Sunday, I mean,
I don't think we can set up appointments on Saturdays and Sundays.
no, you
Yes, you
can't.
can.
You can.
No, you can't.
Yes. Yes,
Well,
you
Since
can.
when?
We can. We cannot.
Since for like
Yes.
the past 5 years,
Yeah.
I've been. Yeah.
You book appointments Monday through Sunday, 8 to 5.
That's good
It's
to know.
actually on the writer's guide.
I said that you can. And
They-
then,
Yeah,
Right.
well, I remember you did, but I know that I've called on a Saturday, you can't make appointments today till Monday.
the writer's guide was, well, these
What is-
binders, I don't,
Everybody got this binder
Yes.
since the last time that I was
and the
here.
writer's guide.
Maybe-
except for the new ones.
Maybe we can put that for the
Yeah.
next agenda since,
So we can make sure it's.
But the answer is then,
Formal discussion on it.
Yeah, but more
Yes.
discussion on it.
Instead of something that's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
So,
we can put
yeah.
it there. But, I mean,
Put an item on the
And
agenda so it can be
those didn't,
discussed.
So
Those are
scheduling
the
I
hours
don't
of
think the new
operation.
ones, I don't think the new people have those.
yeah.
Or
Well, they're
do-
online, but
I
they
don't.
put it on agenda item, I guess.
And they are on the website though.
They're on the website.
And I think when they do apply, if they are on the website, they are told, like, once they're new and there's been service, they're told.
Well,
when
the
they do something,
dispatchers
so.
know that.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so we're gonna get an update on how to,
I guess we
how
can have
to
it on
access
for the
what the
next meeting.
dispatchers have and all that, yeah,
Okay.
because that would be under this script.
And then maybe we can
The,
get an update
the
also on-
scheduling hours of operation,
Well, all that information obviously is the information that dispatchers have.
I get that.
That's the writer's guide.
that's the writer's guide. So if the customer were to ask
Didn't
any
he update
questions.
on the
Yeah.
facility that you guys?
And they all have a copy.
Building.
The dispatchers and the bus operators.
That's it?
Not yet.
I made sure to give it to them.
I would like to know, whenever they're gonna talk about where they're gonna move it. That probably solved everybody's
Or an agenda
problems.
item.
Yeah,
Okay.
or Ms. Monica Garcia. If anything, she'll probably have any information ready, whenever
Oh,
there is
circulator.
anything ready.
Okay, so again, we're gonna have for the next meeting, just to reconfirm.
Did you give this to?
So we're gonna have the C1, well, the circular,
Yeah.
No, it's actually the C1, it's correct, you're
Yeah.
giving us promotion for it, so.
every now and then, my
Yes.
brain cells actually
Yes.
pack it in.
Las
and-
fechas de los todos los meetings.
A lot of meetings.
Everybody's got it?
Oh, you did.
Got that.
C1.
That's a good one.
So we have C1, then we have the scheduling,
Hours of operation.
Hours of operation.
hours of operation. And that would include what we talked about before about what to say if something is booked, it's not just.
You mentioned, update on the script, on the
Yeah.
What the
Like the
dispatchers
phone
are supposed to say to the
Telephone
people when they
etiquette.
call for,
Tell, yes.
for a ride.
Okay.
That's super important, you know, because
It's your guys' favorite line.
Ready for it?
Did
Can we
everybody
move?
sign?
I make the move, I make
We
the motion to go ahead and adjourn.
I so moved.
A motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, because we had a meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I guess our new guys. In what we used to
Good
do.
night, everybody.
Thank you.
You wanna bring that up? This one,
This is
yeah, the
not-
third one.
Then inviting
Some of
people
it.
so they can come and pick me up.
Yes.
Somewhere we have the third one already. Ese es el segundo. Sanchez or whatever his name is. No, not Sanchez,
I don't think they have two of them.
what's his name? The new one?
Yeah, there's a new
Some I know some
Gomez.
Gomez. I know he sent another email, he was gonna, I was out of town. Right, you saw that one?
Bye-bye.
So una, he hasn't taken his
But
own.
also very nice.
Supposedly, we're following the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
As city council, so I don't know what.
That's another one.
Y es mi consideración para mí.
Era para ti, era para usted, era para ti.
Thank you, Mr. Geisler. You're so
No la agarré, no la agarré.
No, ya.
Yo fui y me eché café. Me dieron 2 tazas en el City Secretary